WBNG TV. This is Action News at 5:30.
Thousands gathered to say goodbye to a trooper killed late last week in the line of duty.
He's from as far as Alaska and Florida are here to pay final respects to Trooper Christopher Skinner.
We'll look at the brotherhood of state police and what it means to mourn the loss of a member.
The kid had a heart of gold. He'd help anybody out.
An emotional crowd gathered outside a Pennsylvania court today demanding justice for Earl Youngs, the victim of a fatal hit-and-run crash. An email sent nearly 2 years ago has high-ranking Broome County officials on the defense.
With the conditions inside the building, we can't get in there. You can't move inside the building.
We have exclusive video from inside the home of a hoarder, the house destroyed in a morning fire. And starting today, Binghamton police are packing more than just weapons on the beat to tackle one of the city's biggest drug problems. And still to come here on Action News in this half hour, we'll tell you what happens at the end of this video. Here's a hint. It's not very good for the wedding party, especially before the wedding. That story and more still ahead. Still ahead in this half hour, a full report on a woman given a year to live who is now cancer-free. You'll hear more about the experimental treatment coming up in this half hour. But still to come during our second half hour of Action News, we'll tell you why a local limousine company is forced to pay tens of thousands of dollars in a court settlement announced today. Let's just say there were no free rides for their employees. I'll tell you more on this story coming up on Action News at about 5:31. Well, plenty more stories to come here in just a couple of minutes on Action News during our second half hour. Still ahead.
Coming up on Action News.
The world is in front of them. More than 100 kids learned about possible career paths this morning in Windsor. And details are revealed about one of Broome County's biggest annual draws. We'll let you have the updates on this year's Speedy Fest. Plus, we'll have your latest Storm Tracker weather forecast with Chief Meteorologist Howard Manges, who is hanging out grillside down at Wegmans in Johnson City.
This is Action News at 5.
2 local grocery stores are closing their doors for good. So what will happen to the nearly 80 employees of Wise? And what do 2 high school students have to do to win a car? We'll let you know. Good evening. The Ellis Brothers Furniture Contemporary Store must be torn down immediately. Engineers determined today it's in danger of collapse because of last month's fire. Our Matt Porter joins us live with details on how the demolition will affect downtown traffic and businesses. Matt, what can you tell us?
Dave, I'm standing in front of the old Contemporary building for Ellis Brothers Furniture, which did burn down in a massive fire at the end of April. Now engineers have found out that the building is unsafe and is in an imminent danger of collapse. In response, the city has closed this block of Water Street between Court Street and Henry Street. They expect this area to be closed to vehicular traffic for at least 1 week. Now the city hopes the demolition process can begin as early as tomorrow. Now the building has to come down. The Ellis family has not decided exactly what will be done with the land left over. Meanwhile, while the demolition process does happen, businesses including the Water Street Brewing Company, Jake's Wine and Liquor, the Old World Deli, and Boscov's are expected to remain open throughout the week. Now, Binghamton Mayor Rich David did release a statement to us today, which reads, "We ask the city to be patient as the process begins in cooperation as we work with the Ellis family to safely remediate this building as soon as possible." Now, we will continue to follow the demolition process as it continues through the week. Live here in Binghamton, Matt Porter, WBNG TV, Action News.
All right, Matt, thanks very much. Well, if you do your grocery shopping at either the Wise Market on Harry L. Drive or the location on Main Street in Binghamton, prepare to change your routine. Sometime later this month, both Wise facilities will be closing their doors for good. Employees at both stores have been notified and will be offered work at other stores in the area. Now, that's according to a spokesman from Wise. In a statement, Dennis Curtin, the Director of Public Relations, said today, quote, "We are committed to our remaining stores in Broome County and will continue to invest in our stores in the region, as evidenced by the upcoming remodel of our Front Street store in Binghamton. We would like to thank our loyal customers and look forward to serving them at one of our many other locations in the area." Now, the stores combined have 79 full and part-time employees. Wise will still have 8 stores in the area. Well, for the first time since April 28th, President Obama spoke out about the Veterans Affairs medical scandal that has sparked national outrage.
If these allegations prove to be true, it is dishonorable, it is disgraceful, and I will not tolerate it, period.
The president tasked Rob Neighbors, his deputy chief of staff, to oversee the VA investigation of 26 medical facilities nationwide. Neighbors is heading to Phoenix, where whistleblowers say staff kept secret waiting lists. As many as 40 veterans may have died as a result of those lists, just waiting for care. Obama called for a preliminary report by next week and once again expressed confidence in the former Army general leading the VA. On Capitol Hill, a growing list of lawmakers are calling for the resignation of VA Secretary Eric Shinseki.
We need somebody new that can come in and shake things up, look at it from a new angle, and say that we're not going to accept substandard anymore for the people that have sworn to protect and defend us.
The VFW issued a statement saying they share the president's urgency to fix the broken system, while the head of the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America called it a, quote, tremendous disappointment. Meanwhile, many in New York are remembering the attacks of 9/11 and the health problems that emergency personnel and others suffered following that response. Estimates now show that about 90,000 people were exposed to potential dangers at the site. Now, more than 60,000 programs are in place to monitor their health.
We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our families to get checked. Don't put your head in the sand. These things don't go away. They only get worse.
So far, health experts say they've seen and certified nearly 2,000 cancers related specifically to 9/11. And while responders and their families look back, a museum highlighting the horrific day in September of 2001 opens to the public in Manhattan. A long line of visitors gathered to see the museum, where tribute is paid to the more than 3,000 victims of the terrorist attacks. It was dedicated a week ago, and since then, as many as 42,000 survivors, victims' relatives, and first responders have been invited to visit. Many use words like gut-wrenching and inspiring to describe the experience. Well, a high school student without a way to get around on his own hit the jackpot, all because he played it safe after prom.
I don't have to look for a car now because I was looking for one and now I got one, so it worked out great.
And he doesn't have to ride his bike either. Windsor student Logan Hill was presented with a 2005 Honda Accord this morning because he attended Windsor's after prom party. Don's Automotive and Gary's U Pullet teamed up to donate 2 cars to high school students who attend their after prom party. The event is in its 25th year and encourages local students to stay drug and alcohol free at the school-sponsored after-prom parties.
The participation in the post-prom is, from what I understand, is record numbers compared to other post-prom parties, and we feel like having that vehicle there that kids can come in and win, you know, is a big draw, and that kind of impacts that to keep those kids coming to the post-prom, keep them safe.
Hill will be able to drive his car to and from SUNY Morrisville, where he will study diesel technology. A student at Shenango Valley will win the second car, a 2006 Ford Fusion. CV's prom and after prom party will be held on June 6th. Hundreds of young students came to Binghamton University today to listen to their poems and have them read by a professional. Today marks the 37th annual Poetry and Children Day. After the opening presentation, many children were able to have their poems that they wrote read to them by a professional. Now, Weo is a recipient of the 2013 People's Poetry Prize, and he says that seeing how well many of the children can write is truly inspirational.
I did this program in 2007, 8, and 9 and loved it. So the minute I got asked to do it again, I jumped at it. Most energy I see on campus, I mean, I love my students, they are full of energy, but these young kids are great.
Well, the program was established as a memorial to Robert Polakowski, a published poet who drowned in 1975 while on vacation with his family. Well, we're still working on more stories for Action News. Coming up in this half hour, specifically at about 5:16, the latest on a piece of California legislation that would have required bullies to pay fines if they're caught in the act. But first, let's check in with Howard.
Look at your pollen forecast.
WPNG TV. This is Action News at 5.
It was here on Pennsylvania Avenue where just last night a current and former police officer lost their lives. We'll take you live from the scene of that fatal crash. Plus, it was an emotional morning for a town of Union woman as her home, flooded 2.5 years ago, is finally coming down. And less than a year ago, President Barack Obama visited upstate New York. This week, he'll return, but for a very different reason. Good evening. We now know the identities of the 2 people killed in last night's motorcycle crash on Route 34 for the ramp of Pennsylvania Avenue. And we know one was a former Binghamton police officer, the other a current member of the department. Our Kelly McCarthy is live at the scene with the latest. Kelly, what else can you tell us?
Dave, the accident happened last night on Route 434 near the Pennsylvania Avenue ramp exit. It happened around 10 p.m. and we now know that both victims have died and they both have connections to the Binghamton Police Department. The female victim, her name is Katie Brown. She's 28 years old and she has been a Binghamton police officer for the past 3 years. She joined the force in 2011 and recently was recognized at the Binghamton Police Awards with an award. And the male victim was identified as Christopher Stockel. Stockel is a former Binghamton police officer. He joined the force and he was on the force for 4 years, starting in March 2008. Action News reported, though, in October of 2012, he resigned from his job after following a DWI arrest. Binghamton police say Stockel was driving the motorcycle and Brown was a passenger. Stockel lost control and struck the guide rail, ejecting both off the motorcycle. Binghamton police say speed was a factor and toxicology reports are pending. Dispatch recordings by Broadcastify has reports of bike parts all over the side of the road, and victims were found down in the brush by the Pennsylvania Avenue sign. The accident scene has since been cleared, and a media release by the Binghamton Police Office say any information will be released at a later time by Binghamton Police Chief. Now, funeral services for Officer Brown are being arranged by her family, and they will be held in her home state of Indiana. I'm Kelly McCarthy, live in Binghamton, WBNG-TV Action News.
All right, Kelly, thanks very much. A man working on a utility pole was sent to the hospital after the pole fell onto a mobile home. Crews responded to 2 Elmwood Avenue in the town of Shenango just after 9 o'clock this morning. They said the man suffered a minor ankle injury and was taken to a nearby hospital. Investigators say the man works for Time Warner Cable. The employee was about 15 feet up the 30-foot pole when it began to lean and fall. 2 people were inside the home at the time. Neither of them was injured. A flood damaged homes all throughout Greater Binghamton, and they are finally coming down. Early this morning, a beloved home of a single mother was demolished. Now, after waiting nearly 3 years for closure, she decided to watch this morning's demo, despite some opposition to it. Andrea Arcangeli bought the home back in 1998. It was a foreclosed property at the time. The single mother put a lot of work into the home, and she says that she never thought that she would lose it like this.
Let you stand here and you watch 13 years of your life. All the love and sweat that went into it by my family and friends.
Arcangeli was at first opposed to the idea of watching crews tear down her house, considering all the memories. Coming up tonight on Action News at 6, we'll share her full story and share how she felt after the dust from the demolition settled. An upstate town will host the President of the United States this week. President Obama will be visiting the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown on Thursday. The birthplace of baseball will host the president as he comes to speak about tourism in the United States. The president will speak about how America's tourism industry helps spark thousands of jobs all across the country. Small business owners in Cooperstown say they think the president has made the right choice in choosing their village as an example of how tourism can bring prosperity to cities and towns all across the country.
Glad he's thought about us and going to make the trip here. Hopefully it'll bring some more publicity, positive publicity to Cooperstown here, because we can definitely use all the positive press that we can get.
I think it'll be great for the area. There's nothing better than having a sitting president come into your town and especially promote tourism, which is what we're all about here in Cooperstown.
The president will visit on Thursday. Now, the exact schedule of his visit hasn't yet been released. It's important to note the Hall of Fame will be closed all day Thursday, and it'll reopen at 9 in the morning for regular business on Friday. Well, plenty more stories to come here in just a couple of minutes on Action News during our second half hour. Still ahead.
Coming
The world is in front of them. More than 100 kids learned about possible career paths this morning in Windsor. And details are revealed about one of Broome County's biggest annual draws. We'll let you have the updates on this year's Speedy Fest. Plus, we'll have your latest Storm Tracker weather forecast with Chief Meteorologist Howard Magis, who is hanging out grill side down at Wegmans in Johnson City.